Welcome back to Cosm and John Teach Google Ads. If you've been watching every day, you should see that I only own 3 t-shirts. And John has the perpetually same laugh every time I introduce the videos.
Yeah. I'll probably think of something to, my awkward staring at the camera like this. I'll think of something else to do besides awkwardly laugh. And I only look good because my wife dresses me. So.
My wife still dresses me. I just still only have 3. Cool. So today we're talking about how to build audiences in Google Analytics so you can use them in Google Ads. Mm-hmm. It's a more advanced approach because you can just build the audience in Google Ads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can build the audience in Google Ads. You can build, a lot of different types of audiences in Google Ads. Where Google Analytics comes into play is if you want to use more advanced strategies. So in Google Ads, for example, you can say, hey, anybody that visits this page in the last 45 days to build an audience that we call them that. In Analytics, you get to be really granular. And that's what's nice about being really granular with how you're defining the audiences. You get to use them for all specific audiences, so people that came just from an email campaign and you want to put them in a remarketing list in Google Ads, or more advanced strategies like we're going to do today, how to exclude bouncers from your remarketing list is going to be a good one. A lot of the traffic that comes to your site, if you have a 50% bounce rate, a lot of the traffic that comes to your site, half of them are going to leave really quickly, and you may not want to remarket to them. So you could essentially double the effectiveness of your campaign by simply just removing the uninterested users because they accidentally clicked on an ad or accidentally clicked on your organic listing or accidentally typed in the wrong email address or wrong URL address and came to the site and said, oops, and then left. Well, technically now those oops people are in your remarketing list. So it's a way for
What threshold defines a bouncer? Do we know exactly?
Yeah, it's hard. And what's nice is you don't have to lean towards a hyper scrutiny. You can basically just give yourself a good rough estimate as to what you believe a actual unbounced user is. I think it's 10 seconds or halfway down the page or more, or click on any sort of links and navigate to the next page. But if you said, anybody that stays longer on my website than 30 seconds, that's not only non-bouncers, but people that are probably more interested. So you can actually start to create, people that visit more than 3 pages, people that stay on the website longer than a minute, people that have been to the contact us page. Set up some guidance at the beginning, some guardrails to say, I believe that according to my audience, and you should study your analytics for this, but according to my audience engagement, people that stay longer than 20 seconds tend to convert X amount of times more than the people that stay longer than 10 seconds. And you can really start to identify that.
Though, not to get overly combative, but just to kind of help, let's say, add value to the conversation. Mm-hmm. Because it's a remarketing campaign, it's a little counterintuitive to look at initial conversion data in order to inform the remarketing campaign, because we're going after people that didn't convert. And mm-hmm. So it's almost like there's a reason there's non-converters, and so you wouldn't necessarily want to look at the conversion-based data because they're two different action takers.
Yeah, and that's a good way to think about it too, because you can always say, well, my normal site traffic, after they convert, have been there for longer than X amount of time. And I wouldn't say use that as a guideline, but if you have people that are going to a really simple splash page and they navigate to the next page, possibly off URL to a thank you page, and they're only on the page for 20 seconds because they're simply entering in their email address and clicking go, that's not a good judgment. Then you can't say, well, stay longer than a minute, because then it's everybody's
converting page could actually show as a high bounce rate. It's really interesting. This is tangential too, but I think it's time.com. There was an article on the fact that a goldfish has the attention span of, I think it's 8 seconds.
So do my kids. Yeah, it's funny.
Well, no. So here's what's funny. It's a goldfish has the attention span of 8 seconds. A human has the attention span of 7 seconds. Like we were 1 second short of goldfish, which is really interesting. And it speaks to the need to really capture attention quickly. Yeah. If you're looking at your website, your landing pages, you need to, above the fold, tell people exactly what they're looking at. And don't get too cute about it, because if they have to interpret it or, intuit some of your meaning, then they're just gonna bounce. You've got 8 seconds to capture their attention. So use that time wisely.
Yeah, and it's so funny too, because I get Google Ads has high bounce rates just because you're introducing your brand to a new audience, and you're sometimes getting them to the final result by a path that they would have taken for themselves. So you're exploring new pathways, new opportunities. So you naturally have higher bounce rates. But one thing that was funny is I remember one client said, I have 80% bounce rate, and this is terrible. But he had close to like a 20% conversion rate. Well, I'm like, well, yeah, 8 out of 10 people leave, but 2 people convert. So I don't mind having 80% bounce rates with 20% conversion. So bounce rate isn't the best because 80% of the people came and then left, but 20% of the people came and then moved on.
Right.
And so it's kind of funny that high bounce rate, the leftover sometimes is your conversion rate. So it's an interesting thought. But
Yeah, what you just shared, that just speaks to really good copy. Because really good copy will let people, it attracts and it repels, right? Like it qualifies like, oh, I want that, so I'm going to convert, or no, that's definitely not for me, so I'm going to leave. Yeah, that's interesting. But you're right, bounce rate isn't the primary KPI to look at. It's, I mean, obviously an example that you're pulling out, maybe I got a little too focused on it. But
I didn't have a full thought ready, so don't challenge it yet.
Awesome. So let's dive into analytics. How is it that we build these audiences and use them in Google Ads?
Yeah, so right now I pulled up Google Ads for a client, and the client's name's gonna be blocked out. But inside of Google Ads, you have some pretty basic stuff. Where if you want to make a new remarketing audience, you can say,
John, forgive me. How did you get here?
Oh yeah.
Navigate back over if that's
Yep, you're gonna see a lot of
something. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and you're gonna see a lot of blurred out information. But when you make it to kind of your homepage of Google Ads, go up to the top right, click on Tools and Settings, and then Audience Manager. Inside Audience Manager, you should default to Audience Lists and Remarketing. Now you can make custom audiences, but that's proactive market, there's new audiences. But in your remarketing, for example, you can click on this plus symbol here. And if we're looking at website visitors for building remarketing lists, you can say, visitor of a page, or you get kind of limited choices. So visitors of a page, or who also visited another page, maybe who did not visit another page, like went to my homepage, but not my contact us, whatever it may be. And then you can have, match any or every rule, and then you build your rules. So it's not too extensive. Where inside of Google Analytics, and I'll share with you how to get to here. So let me just click on the home here, and you'll see some blurred out information of client names. But if you get to the homepage of your analytics, it's kind of hidden. You have to go all the way down the bottom in admin. And then in admin, you're going to look at audience definitions here. And inside of audience definitions, you'll find audiences. And then here is where you can build your new audience. Now you're going to have to link your Google Analytics to your Google Ads. And that's when you see, hey, this audience here can be used in Google Ads. And that's kind of what we're using right now for us. But I wanted to share with you, if you were going to use analytics to get any sort of granularity in terms of how you want to segment these people, you're gonna have to come here and click on new audience. Now, in new audience, it kind of goes through some steps. So right now, this one's called only marketing site. This is actually not a real Google ad or Google Analytics category. This is simply just the view for the client. So client type this in himself. It's not something they have to look for. But the audience site is the analytic code that's firing on your site, whatever. You might have your site URL, or it might say like all website data here. But what you can do is you can choose from either a recommended audience, and or you can import a segment, or you can create new. So for the purpose of this one, we're going to say create new. And the nice part about this is now you get to see a lot more choices, a lot more selections that you can choose.
And the point that you made earlier, I just want to hit that again. Inside of Google Ads, you're only seeing paid traffic. Inside of Google Analytics, you're seeing everybody who's ever hit your site, as long as analytics has been able to tag them. So this is all traffic channels are capable of being added to this audience.
Yeah, and I guess segmented by too, if you wanted to. You can say like the traffic sources, for example. If you're running, email campaigns, you can say the campaign UTM underscore equals email. The content was something else, whatever it may be. So you can, segment it by traffic sources. You can do a lot of stuff, and I could spend a lot of time here in comparing and contrasting. But what's nice about this is I'm going to use this to build our bouncer list that I want to exclude as an audience. And so that's why it's kind of an advanced strategy. I'm technically building a group of people that I want to purposely put into Google Ads as saying, don't remarket to these people, which is pretty cool because that's not something that you can do right inside of Google Ads. So for example, if you have really strong proven data and the age, gender, and all the other stuff that of your audience, you can actually build that here for a remarketing list. Or if you want to push them away, say, I don't want anybody over the age of 55 and up because it's going to be my exclude list. I don't want anybody that's male because this is for female only product, even though it doesn't really apply. But you can kind of have these choices that you can use with demographics. Inside of the demographics, you have, language, affinity category, in-market segment, a lot of different good information that you can segment by that you're going to be able to use when you link this to Google Ads.
And just to, again, maybe more for the newbies than anything, but you're referencing building an exclude list because that's the case study. Mm-hmm. This could be an include list if they choose. This is just an audience. Right. You define the audience and then decide inside of Google Ads, am I excluding, including, prioritizing, etc.
Right, exactly. Or if I only want this audience to see the third ad, whatever it may be, you can build.
Talk about how Google's gathering like the age, the demographic information. What was the example you used on YouTube if you've watched?
Yeah, so, and this is actually in a previous video, so hopefully you've seen this, but I was doing a video about demographic segmentation. But the way that Google identifies the age and gender of a person is essentially the websites that they visit. And if that website is running advertisements, that website tells the advertising agency, Google, who typically visits their site. So for example, if I went to Etsy, I would most likely be between the ages of 18 and 34 and female, because that's who Etsy tells Google is their primary audience. So that's what I'm saying. If you really know your audience or people that are visiting the site, or if you looked inside of your audience manager inside of Google Analytics, then you can say, yep, this aligns with exactly who I think is coming to my site. You might have some pretty clear data, but that's just some ways that you can either include this audience or exclude this audience, but it's really just whatever you want to do with the audience.
It's crazy how, the fact that they're intuiting that information just from user behavior. And what's also crazy is how close they get to being right all the time.
Yeah, they're right about 80 to 90% of the time. And that's why sometimes it's a little bit dangerous to exclude them, because you might be right, but you're also going to be 10 to 20% wrong. Yeah. And so you have to weigh those pros and cons. Technology, this could be good if you have app development or if you have any sort of apps that you're pushing via Google Ads, like app downloads.
People that use Microsoft Explorer just across the board for everything.
Yeah, you should always do that.
Be a rule for life for all of us.
And my computer's downloaded like a new version of Edge, and I'm like, I just deleted it really quickly.
You just renamed Explorer. Thank you for nothing, Microsoft.
Yeah, I'd like to use Chrome 0.5. No, it's okay. But what's kind of cool is you can attract or push away specific people that are using device or operating systems depending upon their apps. If you're trying to get them to download an app, maybe it's device versus mobile traffic versus website traffic. Mobile versus desktop traffic. So you can make those determinations here. Behavior. This is kind of where we're going to use for the balancing category. So if you wanted to say session duration per user would be, greater than, 10 seconds. This could be just a default category that you use in all of your remarketing. Or if you wanted to say it was less than, 5 seconds, this is a good indicator that there are probably a generally good amount of bouncers. And maybe people that, have visited the site a couple of times, you don't want to get too small with this or too thin, like 15 seconds, because it's getting close to that might be a real user. Because if you think about it, I might be a returned user that hasn't been pixeled by any sort of either Facebook pixel or Google Tag Manager, not tagged. It might see me as a quote unquote new user, just because Google doesn't identify new versus returning very well. That's why you see like 5,000 people directly going to your website as a new user. It's not really actually happening. It's just not being able to track where those people have come from before. So I might have been a new user that simply reopened my tab or closed it down, and then now I can't be marketed to anymore. So we find that less than 5 second duration is a good indication that you're going to cut out a majority of those bouncers. And if you can cut out 50% of those bouncers and still have the other 50% in there, essentially your campaign effectiveness went up by 50%. So that's a good indicator here. But what's nice about it too is you can even say like days since last session. If they haven't been on my site in 60 days, I don't want them. Or I only want to have it the people that have been on my site in the last 7 days, so they've been running the sale. A lot of different use cases on how you can segment the behavior. And behavior I find is really good because it's an indication of intent. Do they come? Do they stay? Do they visit our pages? Do they buy anything? Only the people that have a transaction. I want only the people that are my frequent buyers, because I'm going to put out a 40% off sale. So I want people only that bought more, people that bought more than 4 times. lot of good stuff in behavior. I find this one is the best tab to use for intent, which is how you should market everything in Google Ads. So behavior is a really great one. Dates of first sessions, people that have come to my site between Tuesday the 3rd and Friday the 7th or whatever it is. And I don't even know how many days in between there. So please don't pause the video and do math, because that probably will just embarrass me. But traffic sources, again, that's kind of what we touched upon in the beginning. And then you have some cool stuff like in the advanced section, the conditions. If they clicked on a branded or a general ad, so the ad content contains something else, and you'll see some ad, this is some UTM parameters that we use. This one here will be blurred out because it's the brand name of the client. But what you can do is anybody that we know have clicked on a very particular ad before, we may want to exclude that because we don't want to keep showing that same user those ads, or we may want to include them because we're going to change it.
Just to pause you here, this is where I think some of the most powerful decisions can be made, because first of all, I think remarketing is the unsung hero of PPC, and people should be using it more than just, as a batch and blast, bring everybody back. I think that we should be running remarketing campaigns based off of what users have already done on your site. So you could be running remarketing campaigns to people who have converted. They've downloaded a lead magnet, engaged with specific piece of content.
Bought something.
Yeah, bought something, exactly. So, there's like reinforcement campaigns that you could be running. So in your conditions, you can say if somebody's been to this thank you page, let's say, so they've purchased my initial item, they've been to this thank you page A, but I have an upsell, and they haven't been to thank you page B. So yes to this page, no to that page, then I want to send them the remarketing campaign for the upsell. However, if they've been to the upsell, then I'm going to send them to the remarketing campaign of our testimonials and case studies, just as a goodwill builder, so that we're fighting things like buyer's remorse. You can get really specific here, but in really powerful ways. I like to think of this as an email nurture campaign. The same way you look at your email drip campaigns, like if somebody does this and I send them this email, there's no reason not to look at your remarketing campaigns in a similar vein. Obviously, they function differently, but the way that we're nurturing prospects can be very close to the same. You're building a list in the same way, and you should be using that list in the same way. You'd never send all of your email database all of your offers. Generic, like, hey, remember me? Like, that's an absurd email to send somebody. So kind of try to start to contextually, qualify prospects and then send them information that's relevant to the way that they're engaging with your site.
Yeah, and that also, you could even almost go like one step further and say, well, what about marketing automation, like a HubSpot, where you're saying segmenting the audience members to send a specific content, but you can also even layer in like a marketing automation, like if they've been to my site 3 more times, then send them this email. Yeah. And the way that we're using it for this client here is they have a 5-step sign-up process. So as soon as they come to the site, the first remarketing is like an intro and a CTA to sign up for this process, step 1 of 5. Once they make it through the step 1 and they're on now to complete step 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are basically just very simple steps, they see a very specific ad talking about the benefits of this specific product as they're on that step. So I'm going to use...
You're using it to boost user adoption.
Right. So I'm going to use a really bad example. I'm interested in a mouse. And so I click on the ad and I go to the website and I say, there's a very nice mouse. And it's like, did you know that there's 10% off? Okay, I'll add it to my cart. And then once you add it to the cart, now it's like, now also this mouse is having a blue tint, which is really, really cool. And it's continually selling them, remarketing them to the process to continue them through the funnel. Now in step 3 is much different than step 2 because we're talking about a different part of the process and why it's important. So it continually nurtures them through the process. So yeah, you can use this based on if they did that, then show this ad. And if they click on that ad, go to this page for them to continue the process. So it's a smart way to remarket. It's not just, have you been here before? Here's another, my brand again. It's very, very strategic.
Yeah. What are the audience size limitations, John? So if you wanted to run ads to an audience here, how big does that audience need to be before? Because Google requires a certain number.
Yeah, 100 matched users. And the word matched users is when Google can identify that individual in some sort of Google ecosystem. So if you're in Gmail, if you're signed into Gmail and you visited a website that was running Google Ads, a very high rate of match. If you're not signed into anything and not signed into YouTube or analytics or Gmail, if you're not a Google user, sometimes it can take 3 or 4 visits before they say this is the same person with the same IP address in the same area doing the same functions. And so we kind of know who that person is. So that could take 4 or 5 visits. A general good rule of thumb is if you have 100 matched users, it will probably take you about 1,000 visits on the conservative side. It can be quicker than that, but usually not more slower than that. But if you have 1,000 users per month, you'd imagine being able to start remarketing will probably happen on day 31. So go ahead.
Oh, that just made a lot of sense. There's also a time window to that, right? Like the match needs to happen within a certain window. It's not as though this is rolling perpetuity.
Right, and it has to fall into your filtering. So if you say, hey, give me everybody that's been to my site in the last 7 days, well, unless you have a high amount of visitors, it might just say too small to market to. So it might just be a dead audience to begin with if you're trying to select too small of a time period and you don't have enough inbound traffic. But what's kind of cool is I'll kind of finish this up here. Let's just say the bouncer's session duration is less than 5 seconds, and then you click apply. And then you can name, and then you see the eligibility. We can do this in display, remarketing list for search ads. Obviously, it's in analytics, external partners like Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It's an eligibility. So the users over the last 7 days is 8,211. You can actually say if you wanted to, the membership is 540 days. So they'll stay in this list for 540 days, which is pretty cool. So they won't expire for 540 days.
180, did they change that?
What's that?
It used to be 180.
Yeah, so now it's 540. So they've actually.
When did they change that?
Beginning to middle of last year, I think.
Interesting. That's really aggressive.
Yeah, it's really nice that you have the ability to do this. And what's cool about this is, what's that?
I was going to say it's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's nice when you build this thing, you can build up this audience list for 540 days, which is what, a year and a half. And that year and a half worth of traffic is now a rolling year and a half. As soon as the ones on 541 day click in, day one is in. So it's a rolling 540 days, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then we can just say the audience name that this would be called is, I would just say website bouncer audience. And then if you wanted to give yourself a quick note, exclude, you can name it whatever you really want. And then next step, you can have any sort of audience definitions that's here. That's what we edited. Audience destinations. If you wanted to, you can have, make them into, and you'll see this one's blurred out here, and this one's blurred out here. But what I want to say is the destination I want to use this audience is going to be in my Google AdWords, they call it AdWords, but my Google Ads account here, and you'll see it pops up. This will be blurred out here because it's the name, but it'll actually say, okay, this one will be ready to use in your Google Ads account. And then you hit publish, and that's it. That you can actually go into now Google Ads. It might take like 5 to 10 minutes, so I can't really show you in this video, but you'll be able to go into that audience manager, and it will be an audience that will be available. And let's just see if I get lucky here. I'm gonna go and refresh this page here. Cross your fingers. There it is. Yeah. Website bouncer audience exclude. So right now it's just been created, so there's no one in there. But this will start to populate, and then you can grab this audience and say, yes, I want to remarket to everybody on my homepage, but exclude the people of my bouncer audience. And that's how you build the audience to use that Google Ads.
That's really cool. If you're watching this video and you have questions, drop them in the comments. We'll answer them personally. It'll actually be me or John. Probably John. You finding value here, subscribe and hit the little bell so you get a notification whenever we send out a new video. We want to do one every day. We actually want to start doing these live, but we can't do them live until we get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're only at 320.
Yes.
So we need 3 times as many subscribers, so we need your help. Subscribe so we can start going live, so we can provide even more epic value. Share the video if you think other people will benefit from it. And as always, if you want a free Google Ads action plan, reach out to us. We will evaluate your campaign. It's done by hand by a senior member of our team, and let you know what improvement opportunities you have available to you. We'd love to work with you. John, anything else from you, sir?
No, this is our normal hit the bell, subscribe, like, comment, share, all the good stuff if you can. It helps us a lot. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get to that 1,000 subscribers. I think that being able to go live and having a little platform that we can do like live Q&As is going to be awesome. So yeah. I can't wait. I'm excited for that.
I want live Q&As. That's going to be
right.
So funny. People don't realize how funny we are because we don't have really that opportunity. Like, we need some hecklers.
When it's recorded too, I'm so awkward. I'm like Ricky Bobby. I'm like, I don't know, do my hands. Like, I'm much better in real life, I promise.
We'll get there. So, and we need y'all's help. So if you subscribe, you'll start to see the magic.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.